My name is Jeffrey St Laurent. This is the live Tuesday call coming at you each and every week, Tuesday. And I love to keep the consistency going, not only because I know that it's so important in our business, but also as a mentor coach who helps coaches transition to a full-time business. I really want to role model that for you, moving forward. And so today's topic is the real work in getting clients. And it's the real work in terms of, I've been doing this full-time since 2004, and I just had a little situation come up this week with my client. I'll share that a little bit later on. But I was just like, oh my God, wait, I need to help her with this, because sometimes it's the stuff that you see in marketing and the way people, as often sometimes do in all different industries, pose that it's easy or what you should or shouldn't do. Sometimes the reality is, and the work that we have to do isn't ever talked about. And that's my hope today, is really giving you the stuff that's not really necessarily talked about. And hopefully some of it's common sense and good work ethic, but I want to reinforce that in how we can create profitable business for ourselves. So like I say, is when we coach full-time, it doesn't mean that's an hourly thing, meaning I'm putting in 40 hours a week, let's say. To me, a full-time coaching business is you're getting paid a full-time income. It doesn't matter how much or little time you put in, because as an entrepreneur, we don't get paid for time, we get paid for results. And it's just a different way of thinking. So before we get going, I want to go over a few logistics. So we know I do record all these calls. At the end of the week, I post them in my university on my website, sellingcoaching.com. So check out the university there. Got a fantastic amount of calls, all very detailed, all very thorough, as I help coaches transition to a full-time business. Use the search feature because there's a lot there, and I don't want you to just listen to stuff to listen to it. I want you to find the stuff where you're at in your world, in your business, so you can kind of tailor it and help you move forward, because that's what I want you to do, is create that full-time income for yourself. Right on the homepage of sellingcoaching.com, I have a fantastic resource for you called The Ultimate Startup Guide for New Coaches. I kind of bribe you there with my dog, so a little bit of humor in my marketing, if you will, but if you can enter your name and email there, you'll get that audio and resource PDF. And also that will put you on my email community, and I want you on there, not just so you can see my emails and create the great content and get these calls and things like that, the recordings, and be aware of the live calls, but more importantly also is that so you can understand how I use email to stay in touch with and stay in front of my email community. We need to be able to do that. I just got off the phone with one of my mentoring clients, and we're going over on how to set all that up with her, and setting up her, her email list. And we're going to, next couple calls after that, we're going to go over the email marketing strategy with her and staying in front of her people. So at least to start off with, you can start to see how I role model that each and every week, because it's vital to stay in front of audience and top of mind. And then lastly, I am available for one-on-one mentoring. So if you are in that place where you're like, I need some help, or whether you start off and you're frustrated, or you don't even want to get frustrated and you need some guidance right away, just go to mysellingcoaching.com, go to the Work With Me page. At the bottom is a form. You can just fill that out. That will come to me. I'll follow up with you, and we'll just create a relaxed conversation, see where it goes. And whether you end up working with me or not, that's not the point. The point is to find out how I can best assist you. And I want you to move forward, because I want you to have all the advantages of having a business that you call your own, and you're the own boss, and you can own your time. So with that being said, in order to do that, we've got to talk about today's topic, and that's what it really takes to get clients. And I want to open up with a story that I began to share a little earlier with my client, my mentoring client, which really spurred on me having this topic today. And my client actually posted in my Selling Coaching Facebook group, if you're a member of that, she posted over the weekend, and it was basically, she was frustrated with a potential client that she was having, and she was trying to set up a complimentary coaching session and going back and forth. And it basically, if I can summarize it, is basically, the client wasn't responsive. Even though they said, yes, I want to coach with you, yes, I want to hire you, it's like, she sent them the link to hire, and then they never followed up and never checked out, and they did a bunch of things. They were supposed to call them, and they never called her, and so she's getting frustrated. And then when she sent an email to the person, the person emailed back, and the client, my coach said, hey there, I just want to reach out more. one more time as I didn't hear from you on Thursday when you were supposed to call me. And then the potential client responded back, I'm waiting on you, capitalized letter. You were supposed to send me the paperwork. I'm a very busy person, and I need to know what the process of this coaching is and how we're going to connect, et cetera. And so, my client, the coach, she was confused. And basically she's a little bit offended, or she's like, I don't know if this person's the right person for me. And then before I could even respond to her, my client basically told this potential client that, I don't think this is the right fit, maybe the timing isn't the best thing for you right now, and maybe we should wait. So I had a mentoring coaching session with her yesterday, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. And this is part about what I'm going to give you now, for the message today. And like I said, this is what spurred on, what I'm talking about with us all today, is that I was like, wait a minute, before you just, go ahead and say, hey, this is not the right fit for me, and, disregard this person. And, maybe in their email, maybe they were disrespectful. Maybe they used all capital letters. Maybe they came across, and I'll use these words, as bitchy, or maybe they came across as a dick, right? And I'm just saying those words because, sometimes with email, or someone can come across that way. But the point is what I want to say is you never know, number one, you never know where a person's coming from. And you know what, number one, maybe that's just the way they are. And I'm not saying we should accept that, or we should be disrespected, or if someone's bitchy towards us, we should just accept it. What I'm saying is we don't understand this person well enough. And what I want to always do is I always want to take responsibility, number one, and assume that, maybe, or what if I wasn't clear with this person? And like I said, this is going to lead into the real work. Right, so what if I wasn't clear with this person? What if this person didn't understand, what was supposed to be done, or maybe they expected something that wasn't met? Even if we were clear on the path that we were going on, it doesn't mean that this person isn't an ideal client or not. So what I recommended is I'm like, maybe it was your fault, because part of the things that I'm working on with my client is that I'm helping them with streamlining their process from, qualifying the client to a complimentary session to point of sale to taking the money, getting paid, and then having the first session, because they haven't really ironed that out yet. And I said, well, in all fairness, to that person, I'm like, you really haven't ironed it out yet. And they're like, yeah, you're right. And I said, so what if you really weren't that clear? What if this person didn't really understand what exactly they were supposed to do? And then they get to the point where they're kind of like, yeah, you know what, I think I kind of took offense at it. And so bottom line is we got to the point where as I walked her through how to follow up with the person. She hung up from our call yesterday, talked to that person, they got on the phone, the person ended up hiring them, and they ended up moving forward with them. And otherwise, this client of mine would have walked away from not only a potential client, but getting a client and getting paid, and not to mention that person potentially rehiring them and or any referrals or other circles that can come as a result of having a successful client. And when I talk about the real work today in getting a client, my message to you is basically, if I can summarize it and then go into some of those details, is that clients aren't necessarily just going to come to us and be like, oh, I want to hire you, and nor would I think you would expect this. However, there is oftentimes, as I work more and more with coaches and with my one-on-one and group mentoring programs, is just people are coming, and as we start to go into the work, some people are kind of, I would say, maybe disillusioned at the work really involved to get somebody. And as I showed with my client yesterday, I'll share with you now, is I've followed up with people sometimes for years, 6 years, as I've said. One client, that's an extreme case. But in some cases, as I told my client yesterday, is sometimes, you know what, I've been disrespected. Not bad, or maybe I interpret it as disrespectful in the way they communicated with me, or rude, or quick, or, you name that type of thing. And I always remain, how about this, even in this process, I remain open, not judgmental, objective, as I would a coach, as if someone actually hired me. And when I'm working with them, whether it's a mentor coach or just a regular, if you will, life coach, when I was doing, if you will, life coaching. So I always remain open, and I always will own responsibility. Even if it's not mine, I will still own it. Because what I know is that if I can get to this person and I can help them and they want to hire me, even if it's not necessarily my ideal client, and I've been in a position where I don't need to take on a new client if it's not a right fit. But what I've often learned is even if I don't think it's necessarily a right fit, I will still pursue that person and I still want to work with that person, because when I've done that in the past, as I found the client relationship unfold, I've created so many great relationships and helped a lot of people that in the beginning I was like, I don't know if this is the right person for me, or I don't know if, I don't know if I even want to work with this person based on maybe how they acted or how they are as a person. But I stayed in that objective place. I stayed in that non-judgmental place, and not only has me working through that, and not just writing someone off, so to speak, or ignoring someone, or just saying, hey, I don't think we're a right fit, etc. Not only has that led to me getting paid for those people, but more importantly, it's led to some, like I said, some of the great coaching relationships I've had, some very long-term relationships I've had, and also some really great referrals. So I never want you to disregard people, and I never want you to get to that place where even if you can afford, when I say can afford, meaning you're earning money and you're doing well, and it's like I remember that, God, it was many years ago, but I got to that place where it was like, wow, I can choose my clients. Like I don't have to work with someone just because, oh my God, I need the money or I need to earn some money. But what I learned is even in those situations is like have the patience with people and learn to understand them and where they're coming from, because those are the people that can turn into maybe some of your greatest clients and or greatest referrers, down the road. You never know where that path's going to lead you to. And the reality is when things are great and things are abundant, that's one thing. When things are lean and things are scarce, you think differently. I've learned in this business, and not just this business, but in entrepreneurship, is when things are abundant, I always still think lean. I mean, just because I'm creating more income and I've got more money at the end of the month doesn't mean, I'm just going to go spend that. It's like I've got to now be financially responsible. And so each and every person that I interact with from a lead perspective and a potential client perspective, whether times are leaner or slower or times are fast and abundant, I always treat it, especially in those fast and abundant times, as if it were lean. And I never disregard anybody, because I always want to make sure that I can, practice my craft, get better at my craft, create income for myself, provide for myself, my family, and my financial responsibilities, and then help people with what I do. So I really want you to have that mindset, because there's those times, especially when they're lean, where it's like you would give to have a lead or have a client. So I just want you to stay there, especially a lot of you listening to this, you're in those startup phases, where things are leaner or leads aren't as abundant. You don't have more leads than time yet. And so, you want to make sure you take that time with each and every person. But where it comes to that real work it's the work involved in following up with people, and I like to call it digging, right? We've got to dig. So like I said, it's nice if someone just raises their hand and says, oh my God, hey, tell me about your coaching, or I want to work with you as your coach, or, and they give you some type of sign or clue that they are potentially interested. They just start talking to you. They ask a lot more. They ask about your coaching. They ask how much it costs. They're just sharing. Sometimes a clue is that they're just sharing a lot with you. Maybe it's face-to-face after or before an event. Maybe it's via email or messenger, some online platform, and you're going back and forth in a conversation, and they're just very open, and they're sharing things, and they're divulging, some challenging situations that they're going through, and they're obviously trusting you with items in their life. These are signs, these are clues that they trust you, and they might already see or might see value in potentially working with you. But then this is that, if you will, like if you heard me say, if you're a student of mine and other calls that I've done and with my clients, I'll talk about is that sales conversation. Is in these conversations, it's not just saying, it's one thing if they're coming to us and they're creating the conversation, but when that's not happening, which most of the time it doesn't naturally happen, or they just don't raise their hand and reach out there, when they do, it's continuing that. But it's when that's not happening, the marketing efforts that we're doing, let's say through weekly events, and it's Facebook Lives, it's posting, it's blogging, it's calls like this that I do, et cetera. It's people reacting. Maybe it's a liking a Facebook post, making a comment, but it's starting to engage in those conversations and create those conversations, from actions that they're doing. People maybe joining a Facebook group of yours. Maybe they sign up to your free offer from your website. And it's following up with those people and creating those conversations. And that's what I would say would begin the sales conversation. And that's the sales conversation where it begins is it's us trying to find out, Tell me about yourself. And if you've got a great headline, like I like to call it, people would call it your niche. I call it your headline. Like if you go to sellingcoaching.com, hopefully one of the first things that you see is my headline, helping coaches transition to a full-time business. You see my name, and then you see my free resource, like I mentioned earlier, the Ultimate Startup Guide for New Coaches. That's my lead capture, if you will. But that headline automatically starts to qualify for someone. So if they sign up for my free resource or they join my private Facebook group as an example, it's safe to say, if I've got my headline that helps coaches transition to a full-time business, it's safe to say that these people are a coach that are, potentially looking for or wanting to do or thinking about a full-time coaching business, right? They're somewhere in that phase. So it's very easy in a conversation from some of those simple reactions, if you will, to some of the stuff that I'm putting out there, like this Live Tuesday call, et cetera, to say, like, hey, how'd you hear about me? What was your motivation for joining my group or getting this? Where are you at in your coaching business? Tell me more about that. So we can start to engage in that conversation and start to find out more about a need they might have and the timing of that need. In other words, how bad, what are they going for and how bad do they want that? And why is now the right time that they do something about that? And what that then leads us to is that an approach where we could potentially say is, hey, based on everything I've heard, I can't help but ask if you'd ever consider, what it would be like if I could help you if you were to hire me as your coach. That's an approach. But we only make an approach as we start to uncover those needs and that timing of that need. And we start to learn that. And this is where we start to get into some of that real work and what we're doing there. And that real work comes from starting off as how do we get to those leads, and that starts off from those marketing efforts. And those marketing efforts to get in front of people and put our message out there. And it's so vital for do this. It's funny, I was talking to someone the other day, my girlfriend, her niece had her first birthday party. I'm talking to someone there, and they're talking about like making videos and stuff, and her niece, who's one, but then she's got an older niece, and I think she's like 9 years old, and she's doing this thing. There's an app called Musical.ly, and those of you that have kids probably know what this is, and you can basically like lip sync to different like either songs or different little blurbs that they do are pretty funny, and kids love that stuff, right? But she's sitting there, and that's all she's doing is making these Musical.ly videos. She's 8 years old, and she's looking in the mirror, and it's hilarious when you think about it. But she's so free with herself in terms of she's not shy or bashful, and she's proud, and she's singing, and she's dancing, and she's not thinking, obviously, oh my God, I suck, or oh my God, I hate myself, or oh my God, I'm ugly, or oh my God, I can't do this on camera, or oh my God, people are going to see this. And I'm like, so what changes from that place to where, I talk with coaches like in my private Facebook group, and it's like people are freaking out about doing a simple Facebook Live, right? And I can respect that 100% because I was there to a certain degree when I was starting off, not from an internal like, oh my God, I'm not good enough type of space. I was there much earlier in my life, but I had to get better at it, and I definitely had to practice it, and it was uncomfortable. But even the willingness to be able to do that and put the message out there, it's having a strong and then big enough why where you got to let go of that stuff, And I looked at my girlfriend, and I was telling her, I'm like, wow, some of the coaches that that I talk with, it's like they're so afraid to just put their message out there in a simple Facebook Live. If that's the case, and I'll be straightforward, I'm like, if that's the case and your really challenge is getting over that, like you might be in the wrong industry, because the real work of where I'm going with this is like I said, we've got to get our message out there. And I don't care if it's a Facebook Live or a video or an audio, a recorded call like this, a live call like this, a podcast, then face-to-face networking events, workshops, things like that. And I'm going to address some of that more specifically. But it's getting in front of people to speak our message. And what that does is that is going to lead us and put us in a situation where we can actually get leads to potentially do the work to get clients, which I started to highlight already, because we're going to start to build an audience. And students of mine know that I always say the number one job we have is to build an audience. And we've got to get in front of our audience once we've identified them and speak that message. So, and I go into some of those examples, and yes, it's sometimes it's scary in the beginning, and we're not confident. And honestly, we could coach you all day in terms of the blocks and why it is and what's stopping you. But the reality is all you're going to do is you're going to know what's stopping you better. It doesn't mean it's going to go away and all of a sudden you're going to be able to do it. What's going to allow you to start doing it is actually doing it and doing that first Facebook Live and being like, oh, I don't care if it sucks or not. The point is, great. If you really hate it that much, you can delete it, but you did it. And anyone that's ever done it that I've recommended as a potential client or challenged people in my private Facebook group, they've done it. They might not have liked it, but they're like, wow, it wasn't as bad as I thought, because we know it's never as bad as we think. But we've got to start doing that work and putting ourselves out there. And even I'll say that the real work is doing it even before we're ready, even before let's say the website's up and or the free offers may be ready, or before you fill in the blank of what you think you need to do to get your ducks in the row and research this and figure this out. I'm not saying do it ignorantly. What I am saying is that, hey, let's put some time and intention behind it. But as we're starting to figure it out, or sometimes in order to figure it out, we've got to start speaking it. And what I'll say with this is this is a little bit of an aside, but an important piece to help you is you've got to really begin to trust yourself and your ability. And I can't tell you how many coaches I work with, and especially as they hire me and we help to figure out their niche in terms of helping who with what specifically, and I get them talking about who is it and what is it specifically, even if we haven't come up with the phrase yet. They definitely are. They have somewhere. Tell me your story and go from there. You hear these people talking passionately about a population and maybe what they've gone through, and I'm like, it's all there. You've got to just trust yourself enough to just let it out. Like I said earlier before I started the recording for this call, I said, when I'm asking the people that call in live, I'm like, hey, tell me, based on the topic today, what is it specifically you want to hear me talk about? What do you want to learn about? And I say, I come to these calls with a blank slate. I do. I have a topic, and I have an idea of maybe where I can go with this, but then I've got a blank slate, and I trust that, and it's going to come out. It's going to come out, and I'm going to go to the right place. And yeah, I've had a lot of years of experience, but the way I got to this place of knowing where I can get on, let's say, an hour call where essentially everyone's on mute. I'm just in a room by myself talking to a muted phone, right? There's no one, you know what I mean? There's no one like giving me feedback and responding, and it's just I'm in a room by myself, right? Anyone else might think I'm crazy. But the reason I can get to that place is because at some point I trusted myself that I could do it, and I did it, and I'm like, wow. And I started to understand my abilities, and then I understand how to leverage those abilities, and then I became consciously competent, whereas I could consciously put myself in those situations where I could thrive. It's why I do a live Tuesday call, and I can just get on here and go off on a topic and have it on the other end, have some, deliver some great value for my people and my audience. And that's just not me saying that. That's feedback from my audience and growing it, because I get that feedback. So it's because I understand how I can extract, if you will, the greatness inside of me. And so I'm having this little aside for you is, okay, in order to get the message out there, and this is where I start to help some of my mentoring clients, is I'm not just saying, hey, let's do a live event, but let's figure out the mode of a live event or something that you do on a weekly basis that can extract your greatness. And maybe it's writing, maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's a call like this, maybe it's a Facebook Live, maybe it's live events. But whatever it is, let's start getting out there and extracting that so you can get that greatness out there and get that message, whether it's live or whatever. Let's get it recorded as well so we can start, having a presence online and getting in front of people, so we can begin that real work of really digging, like I said, and creating those conversations, creating those sales conversations, so we can start digging up and asking more, finding out more of those needs and the timing, so we can make more of those approaches, each and every week. So if you're not getting clients, I got to start from the beginning and go, well, how many people are you getting in front of every week, right? So out of every 100 people, let's expect, we'll call it 5%, which really at the end of the day it could be considered high, but out of every 100 people in front of, if I'm speaking into a group of 100 people, I could expect 5 clients out of that over the next week or so. Might be more, might be less, but on average that's what I found, right? So how many people are you in front of each and every week? Live, face-to-face, or virtually? And then from there, in how many conversations are you having on a weekly basis, live and or virtually? And from those conversations, how many approaches then are you making on a given week? And right, those are the metrics that I'm going to start working with when I work with my clients when I get to that phase with them. And we say, well, what are we doing with that stuff? So if you're not getting any clients, well, there's a reason for that. And oftentimes the conversations that the people we're getting in front of, that's a thing that we've got to push. We've got to do that work to get in front of. I'm going to go over that in just a second as well. And then from that work, it's the interactions we can create from that. Yes, there's a small amount of people that will raise their hand and come to you, but then it's us. If we do an event, there's going to be the hopefully handful of people talking to you at your table afterwards. But what about the other, let's say, dozen people or so or more that maybe you got emails from that we proactively follow up with to begin, if you will, the sales conversation, to learn more about their motivation for coming to the event and what's going on in their world and what their challenges are, which can lead to an approach. And I'll work with people. I like my live sales conversations group that I have on Wednesday nights, livesalesconversations.com. It's a group that I have there that I work with people and helping coaches convert their leads into paying clients. And you see that people get on there and they have an event, and then I'm like, all right, we've got to follow up, and I go over the specific follow-ups and things like that. And sometimes they'll come back and they're like, I didn't do it. And they're scared too, and I'm helping them with it. So we kind of work through it, and they do it, because there's accountability, and then I beat them up a little bit in a good way. It's a healthy way, but I push them, and I find that I help make it more specific for them, so that it takes away some of the in terms of what to say, some of the follow up. But I recognize it's hard, but it's doing that work, right, and digging those things up. So we got to look into some of those things, and that's where I'll go into. From the start is a couple of people when they called in live to this call, they looked at some of the questions they have. When I do workshops to get clients or the value of networking events, and so what I'll say with that is in terms of getting in front of people, in terms of workshops, I would highly recommend in terms of doing live events. Are fantastic. I've got several of my Live Tuesday calls that I've done around setting up live events, the value of live events to get clients. If you want to go into the archives and using the search for those, but doing live events, the thing we want to know is I'd say there's two types of live events we want to consider. There's the kind that we set up on our own, and then there's the kind that we kind of collaborate with somebody, and they already have a venue, if you will, and people that we just kind of show up to, and there's people there, which is obviously, I would say, the easiest and preferred way to do it. But if we're setting up our own events, there's things that we've got to do. The hard part is and always will be with live events, is putting people in the seats. And one of the challenges, what the caller said to me is, it's like, oh, I'm setting up these live events, but no one's coming. So the first thing we want to understand if we're doing these live events is, number one, don't expect to just set up a live event and throw an event up on Facebook, post it on Facebook, send some emails to a few people, print off some flyers and throw it around some local places or whatever, and expect people to register and show up. Maybe if you've got a good reach, you might get one or two people, but odds are no one's going to show up. Again, the real work is creating the list, the spreadsheet, Microsoft Excel, of going through your network of people that and say, okay, who are the people, number one, that are going to show up no matter what? Because, yeah, maybe they're friends or family, but you know what? I got to put butts in the seat because that's my job. And I've got to get those people that are going to show up and ask them to bring a friend. And then, what's the list of, 20, 30, 50 people that I think based on, however I know them, that they might consider this event, even if it's free or paid, whether it's a lot or little, cost-wise, doesn't matter. It's even for a free event, we've got to work to get those people in the seats and get their commitment. See who do they know. It's following up with them via email and phone, the week before, the day before, the night before, the day of, to ensure that they're coming. Like, that's a lot of work to get people in the seats. It's using also other platforms like, if you will, meetup.com. A lot of people, you go to meetup.com and they'll start a meetup up, which is great. I've got some clients that have created a lot of success that way. A great way of also testing out your headline. Am I helping who with what specifically? Who's attracted to that or not? And if they are they my ideal client if they show up to a live event? But you can use the meetup.com in addition to your own marketing efforts or vice versa to get people to come to a free event that you're doing. But again, that's the real work. That's the real work in doing a seminar, whether it's a 2-hour paid event or a 30, 60-minute free event, wherever it is. So yes, do those workshops. Yes, do those live events. But make sure you really take the time to get people in the seats if you're hosting it yourself. That's going to be 99.9 literally % of the work is getting people in the seats. If you can set it up with somebody, meaning you've got a friend, you've got someone who has a business, who has employees, or there's a meeting, there's a group that already get together, maybe you could be a part of that meeting. Maybe you can speak 15, 20 minutes at the beginning and or the end, or someone that's already got a database of people that you can connect or collaborate with to put people in the seats. That's the easy. When I say easier way to do it, you've still got to work to get people in there, or create those relationships. But if they can get people in the seats for you, that's a great way to do it. Additionally, we'll talk about networking events, and we have some questions about this, coming on to today's call as well, in terms of the role, in obviously building the audience, getting in front of our ideal customer, ultimately leading to getting in front of people, getting clients, etc. And I'll say, yeah, networking events can be great. And I'll say this, and you hear me slowing down. Number one, if you don't have a defined niche and you're helping the world with everything, then yeah, you can go to networking events and hope that you can start getting in front of some people. Ideally, you're taking the time to find out helping who with what specifically, your headline, if you will. And then what I'd say is if you're going to go to a networking event, you want to ask yourself, well, will my who be at this event? If your who will be at that event, absolutely, unequivocally, 100%, and all those people will be your helping who people, then yes, go to that event. If it's the complete opposite on that spectrum, my helping who will not be there, or I don't even know if they'll be there, then what I'd say is well, why would you go to that event? And you could say, well, yeah, what if the people that are there know my who? Or their clients are my who? Or they have an audience of my who? Then yeah, go to the networking event, right? But the bottom line is we don't want to hope that our who is there, and that's part of the reason why we have a well-defined niche in terms of helping who with what specifically, is that then it makes our marketing much more relevant. In a networking event, right, from the avenues I just went down is, well, is my who going to be there? Or are the people that are going to be there know my who or have an audience of my who? Sign me up. I'm going. I'm going to be there all day, every day. If not, I'm going to find where they are. And then also going back just a few minutes where I talked about the workshops, in marketing and getting people in the seats for those workshops, or finding someone I can connect, collaborate with that will have those workshops, is if I've got my well-defined who, I can say, all right, well, where do I find these people, right, and where can I go from there? So those are some of the avenues that I'd go down, but then again, it all goes back to the real work. This is where, it's like, oh, great, that sounds great and all, but the real work, this whole phase from getting in front of our audience to creating those conversations, like I said, the sales conversations, or interacting with our audience, to actually making that approach to, potentially getting the client, and then from the very beginning of the story to tie it all together, where I opened today, where they had a potential client and they were trying to set up that complimentary session, but they were slow, or they weren't getting back to them, and then having the patience or not interpreting, giving the person the benefit of the doubt, owning responsibility of the process. All that being that digging and that dirty work to actually get the client. As you can see, there's a lot of that stuff along the way that's not just, woo, yes, I want to be your client and sign me up, and next thing you know, you have a conversation, they pay you a couple grand or whatever you charge, and next thing you know, you're getting paid and you're getting lots of referrals. The reality is it doesn't work that way. When it does, let me tell you, it's so awesome. It's just like when you make a plan on a weekend and it's outdoors and you wake up and it's the most beautiful day in the world and just everything goes flawlessly. Does it happen? Yeah, it happens every now and then. And when it happens, it's like, wow, things could not have gone better if you even planned it, right? But the reality is you always run into a snag or a snafu or whatever you want to call it, Murphy's Law sometimes, right? But the reality is that's what happens. So I don't want to say expect it, but for what it's worth, expect it and do the work, do some of the things I was talking about today, where I talked to you specifically or started talking about, to dig a little bit more and have that patience so you can actually get paid. Because the reality is those extra efforts, what I found is those extra efforts in lean, slow times, that will make the difference of you, paying all your financial responsibilities or not. In lean, in abundant, fast times, that will make the difference of not just more than paying your bills, but now really having some real income that you can do something with, whether it's investing and or, saving. I'm big into that stuff, obviously, and then obviously, having some fun and just doing some things that you want to do and that you worked hard for and have earned. So it will really make the difference between just not just getting by, but just thriving and or really thriving in those times. And that effort and that work can be tens of thousands of dollars at the end of the year. And I've done some years where I've looked at some of those statistics, and that's worked out to $25,000, $30,000, and $25,000, $30,000 on top of something can make all the difference in the world. Let's say $30,000 on top of $30,000. That can make a $60,000 salary, which can get you by and can supply some financial responsibilities. $30,000 on top of $120,000. Well, now that can make a much better six-figure income. Now you're at $150,000. Or add that to it, even a bigger number. That could be like, wow, that's an extra $30,000 that I'm investing just this year alone, or who knows what. But the point is that these little things can make all the difference in the world, whether it's slow and lean or fast and abundant.